Okay, do not get too caught up in this picture, all right? If this helps you, fine. If not, that's great. This is just showing the ways that our body deals with pathogens, okay, with antigens. So the little yellow thing, that is an antigen. These are antigens. This is a virus antigen. This is a bacterial cell antigen. These are the little Y things. Those are the antibodies. Okay, so when antibodies stick to these things, it can cause them to clump together, and it's going to mark them. All of these mark them for phagocytosis, which is when the the macrophage, the eater cell, comes and eats them. Another way, remember the complement proteins and the cytotoxic T cells, the assassins, they can mark a cell to die. So they can feed it enzymes that lead to the cell exploding. Okay, so yeah, if that helps you, great. If not, don't worry about it. All right, so this clonal selection is talking about the creation of plasma cells and memory cells. So once a T cell or a B cell recognizes an antigen, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was still recording. Okay, so clonal selection. When an antigen is recognized by B and T cells, they are going to replicate. So we'll talk about B cells right now. So a B cell, it's going to recognize an antigen, and it's going to create 2 clones. Okay, so each of these clones is just a copy. All right, it's copying the receptors. Okay, the specific receptors that recognize that specific antigen. So one clone are plasma cells. This is going to be the plasma cells. Their basic function is to secrete tons of antibodies, okay? They're short-lived and fast-acting, so they're around for a little while. It's the same thing as antibodies. They're around for a little while, not for a super long time. The second group, these are going to be our memory cells. These are the ones that hang around for years and years and years and years and help our body remember an illness that it's already faced. So this is going to help the body remember the infection. Okay, slide 3. So this is just a diagram explaining what we just talked about. So these are B cells. All of these are B cells. They have receptors on the outside of them that recognize specific antigens. Okay? So once this B cell is activated by these antigens, it's going to create 2 clones. 1, 2. This clone is going to end up being a plasma cell, or a group of plasma cells. This clone is going to end up being a bunch of memory cells. Remember, plasma cells secrete a whole bunch of antibodies. Memory cells remember the infection for later. Okay, so the first time you're exposed to an illness, your body is going to, it's going to respond, but it's going to take your body a little bit longer because it's never seen that illness before. It's got to figure out what to do with it first. Okay, so that's this little guy. This is your immune response the first time. The second time you catch this illness, your body remembers it and it's going to go crazy. It's going to be like, whoa, boom, done, taken care of. So then this one would be exposure to a different antibody. So this is primary exposure, the first time you're exposed to a specific illness, and then any time after that. Those memory cells are going to kick in, and it's going to remember having been through this before. And the response is going to be much larger and much more specific and efficient. Helper T cells. Okay, we already talked about helper T cells. These are macrophages and... Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, so helper T cells. These are the ones that sit around and they go turn on the cell-mediated response. They walk around helping everybody. So, macrophages, which are the eaters, and B cells, it's another lymphocyte, these act as antigen-presenting cells, APCs. They take in, so the macrophage eats the bacterium or the pathogen, and the B cell, it recognizes that antigen, and it's going to take pieces of that antigen and hold it on the outside of itself, and it's going to take it to the T cell. It's like it's a little tattletale. So it takes evidence of those antigens to the T cell. So this is going to activate the cytotoxic T cells in the macrophages, and it's going to stimulate B cells to produce antibodies. Okay, so this specific mechanism here, the APCs presenting that antigen to the helper T cells, it's pretty much going to activate the cell-mediated response. But the first things it's going to do, it's going to turn on the cytotoxic T cells, the assassins, and it's going to turn on the macrophages to go and attack some more eaters. So it wants to go and send these out to go eat more things. And it's going to stimulate B cells to produce antibodies, so we can go ahead and start killing off those microorganisms. Down here is a picture. So here's the microbe, and here's our phagocyte. And he's going to eat him. And here are the antigens, okay? So then it sticks those antigens on the outside of its self proteins. So remember, all of our cells have self. That's going to tell other cells that this is us. This is our cell. So it puts the little antigen right here on the outside, and it's going to take that antigen to the helper T cell. It's going to tattle on the antigen and take that antigen to the helper T cell. The helper T cell then stimulates B cell production and cytotoxic T cells. And it's also going to come back around here and stimulate more phagocytes to go and eat some more stuff. Okay, cytotoxic T cells, these are our assassins. The cytotoxic T cells recognize infected cells, which attach antigens to their self-proteins, which project out of their cell membranes just like the ACP. Okay, I know that doesn't make any sense to you. So a cytotoxic T cell, it's going to recognize a self cell that has got pieces of the antigen on its surface. Okay, so it recognizes this cell and it kills it. So it kills it with this poison. It's like an assassin killing things with poison. Its poison is called perforin. So this molecule slips inside the cell membrane and it makes a pore. And all of the guts come pouring out of this pore and the cell dies. Okay? So cytotoxic T cells also destroy cancer cells. So this can be from HPV or hepatitis B. Or that's a virus, sorry, not cancer. So HPV is cancer, hepatitis B is a virus. Okay, here's just some stuff to help you understand. This little cartoon, this is our cytotoxic T cell. And these are the cells it attacks. So it'll attack a virus-infected cell, a bacterium-infected cell, and a cancer cell. All right, and so how does it do this? It's an assassin with poison. Okay, so here's our infected cell. It's put the antigen on its cell surface, and our cytotoxic T cell comes and recognizes that. It is going to pour these molecules in our infected cell, and see these little red things? Those are the pores that it's made, the little holes in the cell membrane that it's made. That's what a pore is. And see, these are the cell guts pouring out. Cell guts. Yuck. And then our cytotoxic T cell goes off to find some more cells. Okay, here's cartoon. So here's our macrophage. Macrophage is an eater. And here are a bunch of viruses. So these viruses are going to be our antigen in this case. So it's going to eat an antigen, and this would be its antigenic determinant. The arrow, that's telling this macrophage which antigen that is. So here the macrophage has eaten the virus. It's got its antigenic determinant, the green arrow, sticking out, and it's going to go tattle to a T cell. So the T cells, remember, they have specific receptors for a certain kind of antibody, or I'm sorry, for a certain kind of antigen, and this fits. So then because this fits, that's going to activate this T cell. So this T cell, that'll be on the next slide, sorry. So then the T cell is going to go stimulate the B cell to make a whole bunch of antibodies, and these antibodies are going to go and attack the viruses. Okay, so see right here, it's about to connect. And then it's also going to stimulate the macrophages to eat these virus cells, these viruses. Okay, so HIV, AIDS, we talked about that a little bit in bacteria and viruses. This is such an awful disease because it goes out and it seeks and destroys helper T cells. So remember, our helper T cells are kind of the cells that start off our active adaptive immune response. And so if it kills these helper T cells, your immune system is kind of hopping around on one leg. It's not all there. So because it kills these helper T cells, both humoral and cell-mediated responses are greatly decreased. Okay, so there are different kinds of disorders for the immune system. You can have autoimmune. This is where the immune system starts attacking our own cells. So if you've heard of lupus, that's where our B cells produce antibodies against our own self-proteins. So our body thinks that our self is no longer our self, and it tries to kill ourself. Okay? Rheumatoid arthritis, it's also an autoimmune disease. Immunodeficiency, this is where pieces of our immune system aren't working so well. So B and T cells, those can be absent or inactive, so no matter how many times it bumps into the right antigen, it never turns on and it never starts humoral or cell-mediated responses. Allergies. Allergies, this is a hypersensitive response, so it's an overkill response to harmless antigens called allergens. So allergens are just cruising around. They're not even real antigens, but our body sees them and just freaks out and is like, get those things out. Oh my gosh, and it makes your nose run, your eyes itch. It's awful, okay? So that's what allergies are. It's an overreaction to harmless antigens called allergens.